So, briefly introduce myself. I'm Nick Moody, and I grew up on the banks of the Styx River, down in the village formerly known as Brooklands. I was a keen fly fisherman, fishing 100 days a year there as a teenager, and saw the fish sort of dying out in the river through the 90s. Less inanga, less tuna, eels, less trout, and I was concerned. So I joined the local stream care group back then, in '99, the Guardians of the Styx River, at age of 17. Headed off to Lincoln Uni to study how to protect the rivers. Volunteered for various stream care groups around New Zealand and Australia. Worked for various councils and DOC, and now I'm at ECAN as a pollution prevention advisor. But I'm talking to you today as the ECAN rep on the board of management of the Styx River Trust. So that's the hat I'm wearing today rather than my ECAN one. So, the Styx River. It's up there on the north side of Christchurch, as you can see. Second one from the top. It's right on the edge of town, and you can see here, it gets sort of the best of both worlds really. You know, some graffiti from the city and maybe an old hay bale rolling in from the farming environment. So it really is all on that boundary, that peri-urban fringe between the city and the rural. And as the city grows, that presents challenges or threats to the health of the waterway. So one of those challenges is sedimentation. And the sediment can obviously get in during a development stage, when we're clearing land to make new subdivisions or roads. That's one of the major issues that the river faces. So the City Council back in the late 90s, seeing that the city of Christchurch was growing and it was going to in time take over the river, quite visionary, and they started a community engagement process which was quite well resourced, and held a number of events, happenings, consultation with people from all different areas like developers, farmers, whitebaiters, locals, environmentalists, fishermen, iwi, and came up with a vision for the future of the river over a 2-year period. They developed this really neat document here, the Styx Vision, 2000 to 2040. We're sort of almost halfway through that process now. It was a very important document which brought together all the aspirations of the community and set out a plan to achieve them. They were consolidated down to these 5 key visions for the Styx River Catchment and ecosystem. Vision 1, to achieve a viable spring-fed river ecosystem. Vision 2, sort of a source to the sea experience, like a walkway along the river or an urban national reserve. Vision 3, to develop a living laboratory which would connect with schools and universities where people would go to learn and do research in the Styx catchment. Vision 4, establishing the Styx as a place to be with a unique sense of place, and of course doing that with partnerships, which was Vision 5, to work with partnerships. So I was lucky to be involved at the beginning of that process as a young man, and today to have a dream job working for ECAN, where I'm the ECAN rep on the board of management for a group that is helping to fulfill Vision 3 there. That's the Styx Living Laboratory Trust. And so I will hand you over to the chair of the trust, Julia, to hear a bit more about that, and then come back at the end to talk about some of the outcomes of that work over the 20 years of the Styx River project.
Thank you, Nick. So hi everyone, thank you for having us. My name is Julia Rambacher. I moved to New Zealand a little over 2 years ago. Became involved with the Styx Living Laboratory Trust about 1.5 years ago. So I want to share a little bit of the joy I get from being involved. So I want to shed some light on what the Styx Trust is currently doing and how we try to get people involved and how to hopefully empower people to be advocates for the river. So of course nothing goes without meetings and cleaning. But being a River Care group, of course, we want to be out there where it's happening. And so the water quality monitoring, which I coordinate, is we meet once a month with a whole bunch of volunteers that I put into groups. They head out to 10 different sampling sites along the river. I'll show you a map. And here we take a little sampling buckets and we measure parameters like pH, connectivity, clarity, water temperature, but we also note down if it had rained the last 48 hours and how the stream bed looks like, if there's any signs of recent silting, etc. So all that together gives us a really good feeling of what's happening. All these data go into our database, which is published on our website. And so, yeah, here I wanted to show you, this is not the most current because we have shifted some of our sampling sites, but it's just to demonstrate that we encompass the Styx River in blue, the Smacks Creek, the small one in the light green, and in red is the Kaputai stream. And we start right up here as one of the first sampling sites, so we go all the way down to Brooklands Lagoon. Spread over the 10 monitoring sites, and we also have one on Smacks Creek and one on Kaputai stream. And last year, for the first time, the Christchurch City Council picked up our data that our volunteers have collected over the last 13 years, and it got analyzed and published in a surface water quality monitoring report. So it's really cool. That's available online if anyone's interested, alongside, of course, with the council's data. So the council monitoring site would be the letters, and we are the numbers on this map. Another monthly program where people can get involved, led by Anthony Shepard from the Christchurch City Council, is bird monitoring, which is really cool. The volunteers by now have a really good feeling of the common residence birds, but of course based on that notice any unusual things, if there's a decline or if we get any cool new birds. So a large knowledge and database established by now. It's also been a long-running program. Another thing, of course, we're involved with is quite regular tree plantings and maintenance. And the right picture here is actually taken at the Margarita Thorn planting, a very nice, special, spiritual happening. That's in July last year, and I think it will happen this year again. So if anybody's interested. Les Fairgray, a PhD student at the University of Canterbury, made a youth education program which she runs over the course of 4 months. She has 4 modules where high school students get first-hand experience, get their hands wet basically, look at everything from flow rate to macroinvertebrate to just see how can we determine if the river is healthy. We also fund, every summer we fund a summer intern. This is usually led by Anthony Shepard as well. And I just listed some recent work that has been undertaken, like the ecology conversation, art and design proposals for the Styx Catchment, or the habitat enhancement, yeah, just very interesting projects. It's all published on our website as well. We run every summer, in February we run the summer in the Styx, where different organizations have their stalls, and it's a very family-friendly event where everybody can come along, enjoy themselves, learn, and just be with the river, just experience it. And the next one will be February 16th next year. Now, projects we've planned for the future is, of course, continue the planting to reforest the area along the river and make the ecosystem surrounding it more resilient, bring native flora and fauna back. And one of our summer interns proposed a lizard refuge sculpture, which is really cool. It's rocks in the shape of a lizard put into a reserve to actually give refuge to the lizard. So it's a very creative approach. We want to finish predator fence and put traps up. And also a long-term project would be to facilitate a source-to-sea experience, a walk and cycleway along the river. And thank you, handing over to Nick.
Thanks, Julia, right on time. So let's look at some of the positive and negative outcomes for the river of urbanisation, growth of the city. Starting with the bad news, sediment. It seems to be pretty hard stuff to keep out of waterways despite everyone's best efforts. So approximately 50,000 cubic metres of sediment were deposited in the bed of the river since 2000. And in the upper river, the very top, the level of fine sediment has gone from 5 to 20 centimetres in the last 10 years. So, of course, fine sediment smothers invertebrate life and reduces the biodiversity of your waterway. The good news, to balance that out, is that the community group provides a mandate for the council to invest money in the catchment, and I think that kind of advocacy that you do as a river or other care group that provides a platform for councils to invest in it is actually one of the key things that you can achieve. And so there's been a lot of land acquisition, buying up land throughout the river so that it wouldn't all go into private hands, and then that preserves public access as well. So the source-to-sea walkway is still a kind of an idea that could happen, because the river bank is not all in private homes behind fences and locked gates, which is pretty neat. And of course those areas that have been bought up by City Council are being replanted in natives, and so it's one of the largest native planted areas in Christchurch. Here's an image of typical restoration planting site there. The other good news is that despite the sedimentation, over the last 5 years or so, the water quality has been improving, generally recorded an improvement over time, and moved from the poor category to the fair category of health for the river from the City Council's monitoring data. I think that's pretty awesome, because usually we see the opposite trends. That's what we're used to hearing about. So I'm pretty pleased to see this positive trend happening here in Puhariki, the Styx River. There's still quite a lot of different fish species found in the river at the surveys. And of particular interest is the lamprey. There was a lamprey breeding site found just where Marshall's Road goes over the Styx River as you're heading north out of town. A nationally significant sized site. And again, once they had identified that, the City Council invested in protecting that site when they put the bridge across the river. So they sort of changed the plans for that bridge, spent $3 million to make sure that it would be not having an effect that would destroy that breeding site for the lamprey or kanakana. So that's pretty cool. And there may be more sites throughout the river as well. It's also got a lot of the waikakahi native mussels, which do alright in the sediment. This slide, it's just what I've observed as a bit of a process that I thought I'd share with you. A methodology that I saw the things work here. In the beginning, the council staff educated the community about waterways protection and sort of facilitated the creation of the River Care Group by having the Styx happening events. Then that engaged River Care Group advocates for the protection of the waterway, as we do on the Trust. Advocates to councillors. So your elected representatives that respond to community pressure and interest, and direct resources within councils to stream protection. And then the council staff then have a mandate to do things like buying land, undertaking project work, or creating plans and policies to protect the natural environment, in this case the river. And then because you've protected the environment, the community interacting with the waterway, you've got walkways, it's still got some natural values preserved, and they continue advocating again. So there's a virtuous spiral of feedback there that I saw occurring, and that's one thing I've learned from being involved in this process. I'd like to acknowledge a lot of people who have mentored and supported me, and given me many of these slides. Invite you to join us. You can find us on all these different platforms online. And make a plug that we actually have a paid role going at the moment, which is advertised, which you can read about here, to join the trust and further our project delivery work to do more environmental restoration work in the catchment and continue to make the Styx vision happen. Kia ora.